afternoon. Take two, because somebody messed up the first one.
Yes, I pressed photo
instead. So we're gonna talk about melons and cucumbers today. Melons, we're fortunate. We have a greenhouse, so obviously it makes it a lot easier to grow melons. Cucumbers, I know there are some varieties that you can grow outside. I'm not too sure about melons. Watermelons, yes, but we don't grow watermelons. We grow the cantaloupe. I like all my fruit, even, well, vegetables, no, but all my fruit I like sweet. And this variety in particular we found is one of the better ones. So this is melon Helena. Compost is my standard compost mix with a little bit of extra sand, or a little bit of added sand, and a small amount of slow release fertilizer. They're in these pots for quite a long time. This is a 4-inch pot, and I start out all my cucumbers, melons, even my courgettes I do the same way. And so we'll just fill the pot up as normal, just roughly smooth it off, give it a couple taps. Now the one thing with melons and cucumbers especially is you sow them a little differently if you want to get better results. So get a couple out. Oh sugar, I don't need that many. Get a couple out. So normally when we're sowing, we just throw it on, bury it, away we go. I don't know if you can see that. Chances are half of everything you sow this way, especially with melons, will actually rot before it germinates. So what we do is we take the seed and we pop it on its end, if you can see that, and then I just literally just push it into the compost.
And how deep does that go?
It goes down twice the depth of the seed, and that's it. And then we water from there. Now my melons that we're going to show you in a minute, our melons, I better get it right, our melons were started 2 months ago, and they were started on heat and obviously supplementary light. If you're going to be growing in a basement, it's too early. And I don't know the exact timings for that. It's really one of those things that you've got to do a little bit of trial and error to get your timing right. If you have the benefit of a greenhouse, obviously it's a little bit easier. We've had some particularly cold weather, and I mean the night before last it got down to 2 degrees here, so there's no way you can start things like melons and cucumbers in those temperatures. They just won't do anything, and if you plant them out in those temperatures, they'll just go backwards. You gain nothing by planting out cucumbers, tomatoes, melons, even outdoor peppers. You gain nothing by trying to plant them 2 weeks earlier than they really should be. They take such a hit with the cold weather. So anyway, back to the melons. So that's basically it for sowing. So I put one in the center of a 4-inch pot. So here's one I prepared earlier, as they say. This was obviously started in a 4-inch pot. I wait till, I'm not worried about how big the top is. That's totally irrelevant when it comes to most things in gardening. We're worried about the roots. So I'll wait until I see the roots starting to poke out the bottom of the pot. Then I'll knock it out and I'll see what root system it's got. If it's got a nice strong system, then it goes up a pot. So from this 4-inch pot, I then pot them up into a 1 gallon. And again, they'll stay in there until they're ready to go, potted up. Now, at this point, I don't cane them. I just let them run. They're on my propagation bench, and we'll show you that in a minute. And I just leave them. There is no point putting a cane on them at the moment. I don't take any of the leaves off. I take none of the flower buds off. I just let them grow. I leave the tendrils on, and these are the tendrils. So if you're growing these on wire or trellis, once you've tied it in a little bit, you'll find that they will grab out for themselves. Now we don't do that, and again I'm going to show you what we do. So this guy, I can tell you now, is not ready for potting up. I just know it because I can feel the pot. It's not filled to root. Now there's a little bit of root at the bottom, as you can see, but it's not ready. And if I take this out, you can see that is not ready. It might look like it's ready to go up a pot, but it's not. That needs another week to 10 days in this pot to firm up. Then I would put it up into the next pot size.
So what are you looking for?
I'm just looking for a much more solid root ball. If I flip this thing over, all the soil is going to fall off of this. Okay. The plant is still, put the plant in, the plant is not discolored. The plant is still actively growing. It's putting new flower buds on and it's putting new growth on. So there is no rush to pot this guy up. But from there, it would go up into a 3-gallon pot. In the middle of the pot. It's better. I keep make sure I don't damage nothing. And a little bit more of this around the outside. Now this does have, unfortunately, quite a lot of weeds in it. That's one of the reasons I don't fill the pot all the way. So I tend to half fill it, and then I'll put my good mixed potting compost on the top, which then prevents any weeds coming through. Otherwise you just end up with a pot full of weeds. It stops any of the weeds coming through. 2 or 3 inches of it on the top. Little tap. And then we've got to get a cane in that one. I don't think. Oh, I might just be able to. We're hitting the top of the polytunnel. So I'll put that in. Get that upright. Put it to the edge of the bench. Get this guy tied up. Again, just being really careful at this stage not to bend or to break the main stem. It's quite flexible, but it will break and snap if you're not careful. So we'll take that up a little further. Again, tight but not too tight, and they will need loosening up later. Stem does get quite thick on these eventually. And found this is the most reliable, really sweet. I mean, there's nothing, I don't think there's anything much better than your own melon picked fresh. And actually, when you walk into this greenhouse and these things are ripe, I can actually smell it. I can smell a ripe melon as soon as I walk in the door. I don't have to go check. I can just smell when one is correct for picking. So there we are. So from the potting bench, we're going to go up. Now, these are already caned and tied. And then they're going to go on to this is our propagation bench. Where it does a brilliant job of giving us a position to grow the melons and cucumbers. These are just in this is a 3-gallon pot. And then terracotta pot.
So this is the one you prepared earlier.
This is the one I prepared earlier, yeah. And as for training, you can see I put a cane in, so we get up the cane to this point here. And then if Julie steps back, she can show you how we train up our cucumbers and melons. So as they grow, obviously, we pull one over and we tie it in. These aren't quite there yet, but it's very close. So we tie it in like that, and we just train it all the way up to the peak. Well, not peak, but actually all the way up to the top of the tunnel there. And we'll at least probably have, I want to say 8 to 10 melons on each.
Do we allow that many?
Yeah, I will training them this way. Mm-hmm. They are heavy feeders. And I've already gone over in the previous video about this guy in the terracotta pot.
And on the sod.
And on the sod, and explain why. Terracotta pots, the old Victorian gardeners always use terracotta. This one's a little too big for what I actually need, but it's the only large one I've got. It'll take the 1-gallon pot. Terracotta pots, advantage, they do breathe nicely. They don't tend to get waterlogging, but they do dry out much quicker. So you have to beware of that if you're using terracotta. And I'm talking terracotta, not glazed. So this is a pure terracotta pot. So we have a big drainage hole in the bottom. So to cover that, I'm going to put in what we call crocks. Now crocks are just old terracotta pots that are broken. So we put that in the very bottom. Then we're going to use, again, my favourite, which is really well rotted horse manure. We're going to fill that to that point. So we'll set that one into the centre. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix it, put a little bit more of this manure around the outside, and then I'm going to use some of my potting compost, which has the fertilizer in, quite a high strength fertilizer, because melons are heavy feeders, especially at this stage now they're getting going. This compost is not my normal. This does not have the fiber in it. This does have a lot more perlite in it to help with the drainage. So with the combination of the good draining compost, terracotta pots, these things will not get waterlogged, but they do like a lot of water. So from here, it's very different the way that these guys are treated. Or it was very different how the old Victorian head gardeners treated these things. So I'm going to take you over to the bench and I'll show you how they looked after these from this stage onwards. So the Victorian gardeners would have had burlap on the bench tops, and it would have run the whole length of the greenhouse, and then every so many feet they would actually have a piece of turf. They would send the under gardeners out. They would cut turf specifically for this, fold them over. So this is actually, it's not the best quality as you can see, but it's folded over, and that forms a base then to put the terracotta pot onto. And we sit that on there. It forms a nice solid base. It holds moisture. It gives the melon somewhere to root into, some extra rooting space. As I said earlier, this pot's a little bit on the large side, although saying that, I mean, it will actually do really well in here. And it'll grow into this for the rest of the summer season. Then we have the tricky task of tying it. Traditionally, the Victorian gardeners would have used hazel, which again the under gardeners would go out and cut, and it would be used in the gardens for many things, for beans, pea sticks, top end, the twiggy bits would be used for pea sticks. The straight pieces, the really long straight pieces, would be used for their kidney beans, runner beans, and the slightly shorter ones would be used for the melons here. So it's difficult with bamboo because the ties will, as you can tell, one just slid down now, but you've got to just tie it in as best you can. If I can tie it in above one of these little knuckle joints, so it's a growth joint from the bamboo when it was growing, that will actually stop it sliding down. So I do tie them quite tight at this stage. That one's trying to slide already. Tie them quite tight. I can loosen them later. The tendrils sometimes will grab a hold, which do help, but that's there. That'll be okay. I might actually put one more in there. And as I said, they are heavy water requirement for these things, but on the other hand, they want really good drainage. Compost is good for drainage. The sod that it's sat on helps with the drainage as well. So now this guy will get a good soaking, and I think I'm gonna leave this one in this pot, and then we'll do a comparison later on and see how it's done compared to just the ordinary standard plastic flower pot. That'll be quite interesting. I might even actually leave this one on the sod on the floor, and again, just as an experiment, just to see if there is any difference. I'm sure there will be. The Victorian gardeners really knew what they were doing. And Julie's got to edit that and mush that about. So that's the melons, and then at this top end we have our cucumbers. Now the cucumbers have we done exactly the same way. So at the moment they're at the cane. I'll tie the cane in here, and then they will be trained up exactly as, so if you show that again from here, they'll be trained up exactly the same all the way to the top of the tunnel. Once it gets to the top of the tunnel and you walk in and you see the cucumbers hanging, it's really a really pretty sight.
Now I really like this cucumber. It's La Diva. It's smooth skinned, so it doesn't have those little spines on. And it's a very sweet and very crisp cucumber. So we don't let it get too big. These are my favourite.